Hello, welcome to Monday. It's Yvonne here. Thanks for joining me, Yvonne, founder and CEO of Women's Fitness Adventures. So, we had our Couch to Mountain webinar last night where um, we had women from all over Australia join us for our to understand about our program, our Couch to Mountain program, now in its 6th year. And we had lots of great questions, and I want to share some of those questions with you as they relate to our training and what we need to, how much time we need to devote for a multi-day hike for our training. And that, whether you're just starting out or whether you are stepping up to your next level of adventure, time is the big question that we all have. So I'm going to talk about purposeful training. We've spoken over the last couple of months about whether we're flat fit, whether we're descent fit, whether we're hill fit, all sorts of things like that, and the different trail systems and teaching methods that you can adopt to, build your training and build your fitness to make you successful on the hike. But today I'm going to talk about time and why time is relevant but not relevant, and how we can be more specific with the time we have to get the same result. So go ahead and say hi. Let me know if you're here. Let me find the chat. I'd love to know where you are. I'm just going to type a hello in there as well. So the big question is, how much time do you need to set aside for training for a multi-day hike? And the answer really lies with, you know, how long is a piece of string? We have so much time that we can, that we all have, well, we all have the same finite amount of time. How we spend that time depends on our priorities. The more, the higher something is as a priority for us, the more time we will devote to it. The less a priority, the less importance, the less time we will give to it. So depending how important your hike training is, how much the hike means to you will depend on how much time and space you're going to allow for it in your life. The answer to how much you want to train also depends on how important is it to you that you complete your hike successfully, that you enjoy the journey as much as the hike itself. So the lead up, the time, the preparation, that you're not worried all the time about whether you'll be fit enough. So how much time are you prepared to put in, so that when you get to the trailhead for your day hike or your multi-day hike, that you're actually prepared. You've done all that you possibly can, and that's all that we ask, not arrive at the trailhead hoping that you have done enough. And there's a big difference in that as well. And how much time do you need to train for a multi-day hike also depends on what your definition of success is as well. So let's face it, we're all very busy people in the world today. And, all the new technology that has come along has made life busier, and I think in some ways less productive. We're more connected, there's more apps, there's more two-factor authentication, there's more password verification, there's more, just so many things just to get to do the thing that you want to do online. And all of that consumes time. But I did a little study on myself the other day about what also consumes my time. And I realized that I can just fluff, got that word wrong, fluff around for quite a while, wasting time. And I, over my Christmas break, had this rule where I wouldn't actually look at this. I didn't look at any work things for 3 weeks, but I wouldn't look at my phone until 9 o'clock in the morning. Sure, I'd turn on some music as I went for a walk, but I wouldn't look at my phone till at least 9 o'clock in the morning. And what I found was I kind of started to break that addiction. And all the people who were important to me were right there in the room with me, so I didn't really need to be connected in any other way. And I realized in that instance just how much checking this and checking that, liking this, scrolling here when the internet's slow and that sort of thing, can actually consume and waste of my time. So I really became quite intentional. I know when I go to the gym, one of the things that's really hot right now in terms of fitness training is that when you show up for your training, you're really in that moment and that mindset for training. So, you might be doing, your workout at a gym, or you might be doing, hill repeats, and you get to the top and you have a little break at the top. Being really mindful in the moment and not checking other stuff, or, letting our thoughts go off on some other tangent, is really being mindful about and purposeful about the exercise that we're doing. And you might think that makes common sense, but it actually really makes a difference, because it signals to the body that what we're doing right now is serious, and what we're doing right now needs a lot of attention right on the thing that we're doing, focus our time and our energy and our effort. And it just signals to the body that this is important, and it keeps that loop of this movement and this intentional activity that we're doing right then and there. So hello, Sharon, Kathleen, Meg, Marie, and Christine, all over the country today. So one of the big things, though, the big question is, well, what's the longest hike I need to do to train to be ready for that adventure that I might go on? And we could say in the training plan, at your peak, you need to do a 5-hour hike or a 20-kilometer hike, or whatever it might be. And it can be variable. And you know what? You know what happens right there at that point is belief stops even before some people start. So belief is actually not the barrier. It's um, belief is actually the barrier. It's not the schedule. It's not your schedule that's the barrier, because we all think we don't have enough time. We all do have enough time. We just need to figure out where that time exists so that we can purpose that into our training plans. So, there's not one woman I can talk to that says she doesn't have a full life. So everyone is sitting in that same bathtub of, not enough time and so many things to do. And how do you craft time to do those things that are important to you? We also think that, if I think that I have a 5-hour hike in my training program, which is my program might be my adventure might be 4 months away, and I've got my 4-month training program, and I've got a 5-hour hike in there. We tend to think that that 5-hour is the thing, and it puts us into overwhelm, so we don't even start. And that we'll, if we can't get to 5 hours, if we can only do 4, then we'll feel compromised that we haven't done enough, and start that belief becomes the barrier to us being successful, the barrier to us creating more time, even before we start. So, in some of our programs, we don't give you the whole training program, especially some of our introductory programs, because we don't want that overwhelm to be there. Because what we do is we go right to the end of the training program and look at all the hard stuff and go, I can't possibly do that. I don't have that much time. I'm not going to do that. So therefore, I'm not going to start. So let me just jump in here and say that trail fitness, and from all of you that I can see watching, and that I know and have seen on the trail, is our trail fitness is built by consistency. It's built by showing up and doing the things that will move the dial, doing the things that are really specific. And for some, that's building strength in our muscles to support the joints that we need to get us from point A to B, just not in the trail, but in our daily life. For some of us, it might mean that we need to spend more time on our feet, so that we understand what it's like to hike for, all day, and what our feet feel like at the end of all day. For some of us, we might have to work on our cardio and know what it's like to go up and down hills and feel out of breath. For some of us, we need to know what it's like to go downhill and feel comfortable about going downhill. So whilst, there might be in a training plan a 5-hour hike day, that is just one part of the training plan. It's not the whole thing. And what we really want to do when we arrive on the trail is not be surprised by how our body reacts to what happens on the trail. Now, sometimes we can't train for snow, and we can't train for river crossings, and, depending where you live, you can't train for those things. And that's okay. You learn those things as you go. But if we can train the body to go, okay, I know what it feels like to walk for this length of time, and I know what my feet feel like. I know when they get hot and sweaty, or I know if they get swollen, or I know when I get hiker's rash, or I just know that at, 4 hours my feet get sore and I need to take a 10-minute, load off my feet. I know what it's like to carry a backpack with certain amount of weight on it and what that does to my shoulders. Or I know that when I walk uphill, I need to slow down a little bit more. Or I know that downhill is the bit that I don't feel the most comfortable with, therefore I need to strengthen these joints. Or I know that on the uphill, the cardio is the thing that really gets me. Or I know that when I do a 2-hour hike, I've got sufficient water, but when I get to a 4-hour hike, I might have run out of water, or I need an electrolyte, or I know that I can't eat on the morning of a hike because I'm really nervous, but I know when I get to the trailhead, I need to eat something because I won't have enough energy. So when we think about the time we need to allow for training for a multi-day hike, we also need to think about the specifics of how we train for that multi-day hike. And time is just one of the things that we need to consider. The endurance, the time on our feet, that big long day or couple of days in our training that's spread out, it's not consecutive, is just one element of the training plan. So trail fitness is built by consistently showing up and following a training plan. And that long hike, or several long hikes in your training plan are just one small part of it. And um, it's about the specifics. And if you think about, for those of you, well, pretty much everyone who went to school and studied for exams or university and studied for exams, if you were consistently showing up to your classes or your lectures and listening, you might not have been paying super attention, just some of us, but we were present enough to engage enough to get the gist of what was going on, and we participated in the assignments and things like that. But then you had the kids in school or the kids in uni that would just come along to the last 2 lectures before the exam, and then they do the all-night cramming. And, the rare bird would be successful. Maybe that's you. It certainly wasn't me. But for most of us, we had to do that steady, consistent study along the way to be successful in the exam. And that's the same thing with hiking. It's the rare bird who can show up without having done any training. For most of us, we need to know what it feels like for all the elements that we're taking with us into the trail, so that when our bodies, not getting to our head yet, when our bodies get on there on the trail after a day, there's really not a whole lot of surprises. We know we're going to feel sore, maybe, or not. We've trained for it. We know that over time the body will adapt as well to all the things we're training. So we need to understand we don't have to do a multi-day hike to do a multi-day hike. So we don't have to do it in our training. We don't have to replicate exactly what it is. But we want to come close enough to know what our body is going to feel like when I'm outdoors all day. What is my body going to feel like when I've been carrying that pack outdoors all day? What is my body going to feel like if I have to walk up a hill and all I've ever done is train on flat? So the specifics of our training plan matter probably more so than that 1 or 2 big long days in a training hike. So we want to get familiar with how our body's going to feel on a multi-day hike, and time is just one element of that. So, what we want to test before we go on a multi-day hike is not only our feet, our pack weight, our nutrition and hydration, and our mental toughness. We want to just test all of those things so that, we can really enjoy the multi-day adventure that we've booked on. But the question always comes back to, can I fit it in? Can I fit it in? I work full time. I catch the train to work. It's dark when I leave home. It's dark when I get back. And I only have the weekends to do my training. So we really want to focus on, or perhaps, you live somewhere where there isn't any hills, or it's hot for most of the year, or it's not safe to go, outside at certain hours, or wherever you may live. And there's lots of people that live in different locations. So when we do our training, we want to make sure that we fit in more frequency. So if you only have 30 minutes 3 times a week, that may actually be what you do with that 30 minutes may actually be better than if you are only doing your training once a week on a weekend. What you do in those 3 30-minute segments, whether that is cardio training or strength training or endurance, maybe the specifics of that may be much better than going for a 5-kilometer walk on the flat, on the footpath. So the specifics of what we're training matter more so than really time. And, one longer session a week or one longer session a month or one longer session every 2 weeks, if you're doing all these other little specific things that train the other elements, um, may outweigh the fact, that you can't get to do, the big long hike every other week and someone else can. And it's also our perception of time. I say, and I'm just using hypotheticals, but if there's a 5-hour hike in your training plan, which means you're going on a big, long, multi-day hike and you've got long days in there, and not all of them are like that. But our perception of time is really different. Depending where you live, and I know for some it doesn't get light till 7 o'clock in the morning. But if you're out on the trail by 8:30, you're kind of home early afternoon. That's the maximum, that we would ask for you in a multi-day hike training. So, our perception of time, we kind of think it's all or nothing. And if we plan it, and that's why we ask everyone to get smart about their goals and their life and how to fit the training in with your life, not let it overwhelm you. Um, Helps with our, when we understand our perception of time and how much time we actually have. And if you work full time and can fit in those little things, take the stairs instead of the lift. And I know many of you do. Go for the 10-minute walk at lunchtime, which may not seem like much, but you're just giving yourself every opportunity to keep moving. And that, it's well researched, health wise, that our body responds to this moving stimulus more and more rather than sitting. There's lots of data around sitting that it's not particularly good for us. So if we do have a desk job, we can walk in the morning, we can get up and do these regular little things throughout our day, is much better than just sitting down all day. And that regular movement through the week is much better than no movement through the week and just doing something on a weekend. So um, when we put out a training plan for our multi-day adventures, it's really based around, um, what the adventure is and what the physical requirements of the adventure is, and where most people, their starting point is. So whether it's an intro, moderate, or a challenging adventure, and know that the time component, which is the biggest question I get asked, thanks Beck, which is the biggest question I get asked, is just one component, and it's in the peak training phase. So when we set up training plans, and for those of you who have been away with us, you know that your training plan has your kind of base, and then it has your conditioning, and then it has your peak training. And the longer chunk of time is only in the peak training. And we don't hold you in peak training for very long, because we want the body to know what it feels like for a short period of time. So peak training may exist where you are carrying, you're doing the greatest distance, the greatest time on your feet, and carrying the most in your pack, all at the same time. You don't start there, and you only hold that for a short period of time. And the reason we only hold that for a short period of time is if we were always training at peak, if we were always doing the long distances, always with the heavy packs, always smashing out the hills, our body will fatigue, and we risk injury, and I've seen it, and we risk breaking down. So we hold you at peak. You think of all the great athletes, they really just do their, conditioning, their base training, their conditioning, and they hold here, and then they ramp up and they stay at this high point for a short period of time, so that then they can let their body recover and peak when they need to on the multi-day hike. So if you think about adventure and training and time, and how much time do I really need to commit to a multi-day hike? You don't, it will fit in with your life if you choose for it to. You just have to believe that this is important enough to you and that you can make it work with your busy life. And I've seen many, many women who, live on remote properties, or women who work full time and transit, to and from that location an hour each day, who are successfully hiking the trails because they're making it work. They're planning, they're looking at their life going, this is important to me. I may, I need to have an understanding of the whole thing, but I can make this work. I can be purposeful, and I need 15 minutes to do my cardio. And, in our community, it's the step session. So, and we were talking today about our ability to lift feet and watching how feet are not being lifted. That strength in the glutes and that lifting of the feet is not, you know, if it wasn't for poles, some people would be falling over. So, the specifics of the training in StepFit is not just the cardio, it's this ability to lift our feet. The specifics of the trail fit training is not just to spend an hour having a great time. Well, some of you may not think it's great, but have an hour, uh, uh, working on the muscles that support the joints. The specifics of trail fit training is to give those muscles that we're going to use on the actual trails that we'll be hiking, give them the workout and give them the strength so that they're strong and capable, and they give you that reassurance when you're on the trail as well. So the trail will reward those who have trained right. The trail won't reward you if you've done all the distance, but you've never done the distance with a different trail or a different packway or different weather conditions as well. So have a think about that. So if you're thinking, I'd like to do a multi-day hike, but I don't have time to train, just flip that on its head, and the belief that I do have time to train. I just need to be very specific and very precise and get the right information about how I need to train, because I would much rather someone trained 3 times a week in short bursts, very specific. And you can certainly do training in a gym as well. And I know some people who live in very warm conditions that do have to train in a gym. It is too hot to train in the locations that they live, or it's unsafe to be out in the early or late hours in those hot locations. That we teach you, or getting the right information to train right. So someone who can train for that cardio specifically, someone who can train for their strength specifically, someone who can train and trains themselves up to carrying the right pack weight and feeling strong about it, and then doing that over time or over hills, or over distance or over hills, and then over time has trained much better than someone who may have 3 times a week walked their footpath, their local suburb, or once a month got out and done a 3-hour hike on a trail. So the specificity of it really matters. So if you're thinking, I'm just super busy and I can't fit in the time, have a chat to us, because the specifics of how we train really make a difference. And, in some circumstances, 3 hours, 3 hours and all those other things, depending how far your hike is, may make a huge difference instead of the 5. So just think about that. It's not all black and white. Find the joy in our training. That's the most important thing. And when you do the things that bring you joy, that's a song, and one of my favorite songs actually, then it doesn't seem like a chore. It becomes a priority. And when we prioritize ourselves for our health and wellness, and I know some of your stories who are watching, it gives us that beautiful circle of I feel good. I believe that if I do this, I will feel good again. So that belief that we didn't have enough time is suddenly starting to change, because the belief is I've made some time. I now feel good about myself. So now I can make some more time, and I can craft that to be however I want that to be and be successful on the trail. So that is it from me. I'm just going to check in on some comments here. So thanks, Beck, says great topic. Glad you enjoyed it. And Nerida says, I'm more consistent if I walk in the morning. Yeah, I tend to make excuses if I leave it till a PM. Oh, look, I am exactly like you. My husband will often ring on his way home from work and say, you want to go to the gym? And I'll go, yeah. And then by the time he gets home, I'm like, oh, I'm not coming. Because I've generally done my moves in the morning. And they did have a story on the ABC. Brisbane, where I live, is the earliest rising city in the world, and on average everyone gets up at 6:30. But they were talking today about the unseen business opportunity of businesses opening from 5 till 8 a.m. And that's where a large proportion of money is being spent. And, as I run around my city at, 4:35 a.m. in the morning, it's such a lovely thing to see so many people out and about with coffees in their hand and stuff like that. And there's not many places in the world. So I'm with you, Nerida, that being a morning person is really the place for me to do that as well. But, everyone is different, and, knowing that sweet spot for you and your time can really help. Hey, Peter, finally found us live. Yeah, I'm nearly done. And if you would like some help with how do I, these are my circumstances, how do I craft out some time, and how do I be more specific in my training plan? Because time is, for all of us, a precious commodity. We want to make sure that, nothing's free. We're not giving ourselves to that for free. It wants something of us. So just remember that as well. So if you'd like some help with how to, plan your plan, then just reach out to us at the office. So that's it from me for tonight. Now, next week I will be. After there's another song after seven, Leonie. After 7 flying hours, I'll be landing in Hong Kong next week. So on my way to our adventures in Italy and Albania, um, which have been a long time in the planning. So I may not come on Monday, but I will be popping on for a live from somewhere, somewhere over there, and I will share with you some stories of what Training on the Trail has been doing, some other tips and tricks around training and hiking and navigating ourselves in these beautiful locations. So thanks for jumping in, and I look forward to catching up with you next time. If you're watching on replay, please ask away or share stories. Always happy to share, experience, and for everyone else to share their experience too. So that's it from me. I'll catch you next time. See you.